So today we're working on decimals and fractions, and these are the type of questions that are usually in the beginning of the TSI, okay? Remember, the TSI is a progressive test. How you're doing on it, your questions are either gonna get easier or they're gonna get harder. Do you remember that? So it's adaptive. We're gonna start off really basic. Here we are. Number one, we have to add these decimals up. When you're adding decimals, what is the number one thing you do? Line up the decimal places, okay? When you're adding decimals, you need to line up your decimal places. So we have 2 and 7500ths. We have 3000ths. And we have 158,000ths. After we've lined up our decimal places, then we need to add from right to left, correct? And we will regroup as we need to. 3 plus 8 is 11. Regroup my 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. Again, regroup. 1 plus 7 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. Done. 2 plus nothing is 2. So the answer would be B. Okay. So again, key thing that we need to make sure remember is to line up the decimal place. You have 60 seconds to do your you-do problem. 60. All right, so again here, you should have just simply lined up the decimal places. So I'm gonna be resourceful and just move it here. And you should have gotten 62 and 421 thousandths. Yes? All right. Now, just recapping, is there any difference between subtracting? No, we still have to line up the decimal places and we work our way from right to left. Okay, now we're gonna talk about fractions, okay? So right now we have mixed numbers, right? Why are they called mixed numbers? Because we have a whole and a fraction together, correct? Now, to me, the fastest way of solving this is to turn it into an improper. So step one is to go from a mixed to an improper. Okay, do you remember that? Now, how I was taught to go from mixed to improper, it's called around the world. So your first trip around the world is to multiply. 3 times 3 is? 3 times 3 is? 9. Your second trip is to add. What's 9 plus 1? 10. And then you come back home. So that makes it 10 over 3. Okay. Next, we're going to do it again. So around the world, 2 times 5 is? 10 plus 2 is? And then you come back home. So that makes it 12 over 5. Okay. Huh?
That's so much easier.
2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12.
What grade would you have it?
No. No. You come back home. Your denominator doesn't change. Are you questioning my 5th grade teacher?
Oh, so you would have learned this in engineering.
Yes.
Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook felt in the sports.
All right, here we go. So that's step 1. Questions on converting. Are we good with around the world? Okay, it's called around the world because you come back to the same denominator. The denominator does not change. Okay, step 2. Now, step 2, my teacher called this bats and ball. I do not call it bats and ball. I call it chopsticks in a bowl. Chops in a bowl. You'll see why. So your chopsticks, this is for so that you don't have to worry about finding a common denominator. You just keep doing math. So to do chopsticks, here's my first chopstick. You work your way from left to right. What is 10 times 5? 50. Here's my rice, minus. What is 3 times 12? 36. And here's my bowl that it's all in. What's 3 times 5? 15. Do you see my chopsticks in a bowl? Okay. Now we have 50 minus 36. What is 50 minus 36? 14. So our answer is C. Okay. How do we feel about subtracting mixed numbers? Okay. Guess what, guys? The same thing works for when you're adding them. Oh my God. Okay. It's the same thing for adding them. All right. Now, for number 3, I'm going to give you 90 seconds to do it on your own. I'm sorry. I can't go below 10th grade. All right, so based on the conversations, I'm assuming we're ready to go. So I'm going to go fairly quickly because you're just checking, right? All right, so first, again, we're going from mixed to improper. So multiply, then add. That gives me 5 over 2. Minus, multiply, then add gives me 10 over 3. Okay, then we're going to cross multiply from top to bottom, left to right. 5 times 3 is 15. And order matters, especially when you're subtracting. Minus 2 times 10 is 20. And then my bowl, 6. And what is 15 minus 20? Negative 5, 6. How do we do?
Good.
Good? Doable? All right, we're gonna keep it trucking. All right, next, talking about converting a fraction to a decimal. Now, there are 2 ways of doing this. Way number 1 is to convert your fraction to a fraction with a power of 10. So 100, 1,000, 10,000, you get what I'm saying? Or you do long division. Doesn't matter which way you do it? No. So I'm going to quickly model both, okay? So as far as long division, my 3rd grade teacher says the cowboy rides the horse. So 7 over 20. At night, the cowboy goes in the house and the horse stays outside. The cowboy rides the horse. I'm going to add in zeros. So 20. Does 20 divide evenly into 7? No. Does 20 divide evenly into 70? Yes. How many times? 3. That gives me 60. Then we subtract. And we're left with 10. And then we bring down 100. Does 20 divide evenly into 100? Yes. How many times? 5. So my answer would be 0.35. Do we remember the long division way? The other way is your fraction way. So if I have 7 over 20, 20 can become 100. How does 20 become 100? Multiply by 5. What I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. What is 7 times 5? Which one of these says 3,500? C. Okay. So you have 2 methods of doing this. Do we see the 2 methods? All right. Believe it or not, I actually teach a class at MC to future elementary teachers on how to teach this to students. So hopefully more of y'all in the future will know how to do things like this.
What is that called?
It's called Math for Future Educators.
Is that something we can make?
Do you plan on being, I guess, I don't know. But it's for people who want to be future elementary teachers. So I'm hopefully, you know, how I'm really passionate about it because y'all have all these gaps in math.
Yeah.
And they come from elementary. And so I'm like, look here, we're going to fix this. Y'all are going to keep doing this to my high school students. So just really quick, 10 seconds. What is 3/5 as a decimal? 0.75. We're just going to keep trucking there. Okay. Quarters. Think about it as quarters. Other way to think about it is, again, if you didn't know, think about it as a fraction. How does 4 become 100? Times 25. What I do to the bottom, I have to do to the 7,500. Okay. We're going to keep it going. That one was too easy. So, all right. Another easy one for you. What is the smallest decimal here? C. Why is it C? It starts with 0. You go from left to right, looking at the place values, right? All my ones values are the same. Then I get to my tenths place. I have a 1, a 5, a 0. Oh no, that's 0. So that has to be my smallest. All right, really quick on your you do, 10 seconds. What is your smallest? What is your smallest, guys? Thank you. Thank you.
I thought someone else had that.
No one has said anything. I was getting a little worried.
I was talking about, I thought we were good.
No, I said,
Oh, yeah, that's got to be your question to answer.
Okay. All right. Next, we're going to talk about rounding to approximate our answer. So which of the following is the closest to? So if I look here, I'm going to round these to the nearest whole number. So if I'm rounding, what is 27.8 round to? 28. What is 9.6 round to? 10. So what is my estimated value? My 280. Okay, remember when you're multiplying by powers of 10, your trick is that's how many zeros you add onto the number, right?
Yeah.
And so we just needed to add a 0 to this to make it 280.
Yes.
All right, 60 seconds. This one's not the same. This is just an overestimation. So if you were roughly telling someone how much something cost, what would you tell them? B, the closest is 50. So if you're looking here, you're roughly estimating, this would be about 21. This would be about 2, which is 42 out of these, which is the closest to that.
2,000.
2,000? Oh, okay, I thought so too. All right, here we go. A soccer team played 160 games and won 65% of them. How many games did it win? Did they win? Okay. All right, so we have 160 games. Again, there's 2 ways of solving this. Way number 1 is multiplying by a decimal. Way number 2 is through set up a proportion and cross multiplying and dividing. We're going to model both ways, and then you get to choose whichever one you like. Okay. So the first one we're going to do is the way that you guys initially learned in elementary school, which is setting up a butterfly. Well, not butterfly, a proportion, and then butterfly, whatever y'all call it. So you have 160 games. That is the bottom of your fraction. That's your total. You have no clue how many wins you won, right? Mm-hmm. But you do know that it was 65%, and 65 means 65 out of 100. Okay. If you had a really cool and awesome teacher, they would have told you to reduce 65 over 100. If not, then you would have just, what would you do here? Butterfly, you cross multiply and divide. So we have 100 times W, which is 100 W, equals 65 times 160. And that's what 160 times 65. Okay. And you're going to multiply and then do what? Divide. So we're going to do 65 times 16. Why am I only doing times 16? I can add the 0 on the end. Does that make sense? I can multiply by the 10 in the end. So we have 5 times 6. 30. Regroup. 6 times 6. 36 plus 3. 39. 1 times 5. 5. 1 times 6. So that gives us, adding together. And remember, we still have to add what back in here? Our 0. So we're now left with 100 W equals 10,400. Okay, after you do that, what do? Divide. So we cross multiply and divide. Pew. Cross out. So you get W equals 104. Okay, that is what you were taught in 5th grade. The butterfly. Okay. Now, the other way is when you have a decimal, that just means that you're multiplying, when you have a percent, that means you're multiplying by a decimal. So you could have just did 160 times 0.65 and just multiply. So remember, it's just zeros all the way. So you have 5 times 0 is going to be 5 times 6, 30. Regroup to 3. 5 times 1 is plus 3, 8. Then 6 times 0 is 6 times 6 is regroup 3. 6 times 1 is carry my plus 3 is 9. And I'm going to add everything together. 2, 4, 1. And how many decimal places did you have? 2. And there's your also. So again, can you do the butterfly and do all of this? Yes. Or remember that a percent just means you're multiplying by a decimal. So option A and option B. Option B is a little quicker. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a lot.
Just a little bit. Okay. Your choice on which way you want to do it. Got it? All right. Do it. So you have a football team played 40 games and won 20% of them. How many did they win?
Not even.
All right, so by show of hands, who did multiply by a decimal? Or, so I don't need to do the proportion, we multiply by decimal?
Please just do the multiply by decimal.
Okay, so 20% means I'm multiplying by 0.2, agree? So we have 40 times 0.2. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 4 is 8, and how many decimal places do I have? 1, so the answer is 8. Yes? We did good? How are we feeling about this review of basic math concepts? Is it helping?
I'm glad we're going through this.
Okay,
I don't
good.
remember any of this.
All right, 32. 32 is 40% of what number? Okay. 32 is 40% of what number? So you're reversing. Okay. So we're going to start off as a proportion, then we're going to talk about another way of solving it. So 32 out of what equals 40 out of 100? That's what you're asking yourself. So it's still a proportion problem. It's just that instead of looking for your numerator, you're looking for your denominator. Do we see that?
Yeah.
Mm-mm. I don't know. Hold on. I'll work on the English in a minute. All right. So here we go. We're going to cross multiply. 3,200. Agree? Equals 40x. What do I do? Divide by 40. Cross zeros. And we get 80. So the answer would be 80.
Oh, I guess you can't read now.
All right. Now, when you're doing something like this, could you reduce beforehand? Could 40 out of 100? So when you're making your percent, if you know you're 40 out of 100, you can reduce that down to, anyone? 2/5? So when you set up your proportion, instead of having 40 out of 100 to work with, you could be working with 2/5. You can work with smaller numbers, and then therefore it's less to multiply through. But that's the general fastest way of doing this, is to find your denominator. All right. Here we go. Next, 45 is 30% of what number? Go for it. So tell me. All right, here we go. So you had 40 is 30% of what? Shh, guys. So we had 45 out of what equals 30 out of 100. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the zeros. Is that cool up front?
Yeah.
So I'm going to cross multiply. 45 times 10 is 450 equals 3 times x. And what would I need to do? Divide by 3. 3 goes into 4 how many times? 1 with a remainder of 1. 3 goes into 15. 5 times. So my answer would be 150. All right, our last one. We're at the end, guys.
3 times.
Here we go. It says all the following are ways to write 25% of n except, okay? So when you're trying to find the percent of something, you can multiply either the decimal or the fraction of it, right? So whether it's the decimal value or the fraction value of 25%. Well, 25%, what are all the ways to write it? Well, 25% equals 25 out of 100, which equals 1 out of 4. So these are, which equals also 0.25, right? So if these are all the ways to represent the fraction, meant the decimal, which one of these is not? D. D is not one of these representations, is it? No. So D would be the one that's not the answer. All right, really quick. Last problem of the day.
Let's go, gang.
Okay, so we have 75%. 75% equals 0.75 as a decimal, which equals 75 out of 100, which equals 3 out of 4. So these are all the ways to represent 75%. Which one of these is not? C.
Okay.
All right. That is our arithmetic review for the TSI.